social media was competing for our attention. AI is competing for attachment. Imagine it was no longer governed by engagement. You don't get the sexualization of young people. You don't get people who can't concentrate and can't read books. You don't get the inflammatory, polarizing, personalized information for everybody. AI is like strapping on a booster rocket to all of those incentives. We have rallied together internationally to try to create a different future when we understand that there's a clear threat. The ozone hole was just going to give everybody skin cancer and cataracts. AI is going to create way more damage than skin cancer and cataracts. I'm not saying this to sow conspiracy theories. People just need to know that what is being rolled out is not going to be in the mass interest of everybody.
Hi, I'm Steve Rathche. I'm an incoming assistant professor of human-computer interaction at Carnegie Mellon University and creator of the psychology TikTok channel, Steve Psychology. I am here today with Tristan Harris, who is a tech ethicist and co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology. You might recognize him from the widely popular Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which was viewed more than 100 million times and raised concern about the societal impact of social media. He's now speaking up about the risks of artificial intelligence and just had an excellent TED Talk about that topic. Thank you for being here today,
Tristan. So good to be with you here, yeah.
So tell me...
Big fan of your work as well, which has deeply influenced,
thank you.
As obviously 60 Minutes talking about your polarization work.
Yeah, a huge fan of your work and grateful that you highlight research in this space. Yeah. So just before we started, we were talking about your time at Stanford. We're both Stanford alumni. Yep. So tell me a little bit about your journey. You went from studying computer science at Stanford to working in the tech industry to now being one of the most prominent voices in tech ethics. Tell me about how you got there.
Sure. So I studied computer science at Stanford, but I was really more interested, like you, in kind of psychology. There was a major that apparently we both touched. I guess your minor, my
symbolic systems.
My closet major, which is symbolic systems, which is kind of an integration of cognitive science, linguistics, philosophy, computer science, and really theory of mind, which is very relevant to AI and social media. And I, was friends with a lot of the people who, I graduated in 2006. So this was around the time of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, which had started basically just 2 years earlier. Their offices were right at University Avenue, right down the street. A lot of my friends were working there. My other sort of friends and dorm close mates were the co-founders of Instagram, Mike Krieger and Kevin Systrom.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And as we were talking, before we got started rolling, these were friends of mine. I saw the culture of the people who built all of this, and I have nothing against them as people, by the way. And it's actually, I deeply love them as friends and people. But what I saw was how good people, once they created something that was at first just, in the case of Instagram, like a photo sharing app that was about sharing moments of your life with other people, quickly got sort of sucked into this different set of incentives. And that's something that I didn't know when I was at Stanford, was really understanding systems and incentives. And it wasn't about the intention or the good people or how ethical you are. At the end of the day, the incentives dominate, by which I mean the business models and the competition. And if I don't do it, I lose to the other one that will. So if Instagram doesn't go after 12-year-old users and TikTok does go after 12-year-old users, what's Instagram going to do? Are they just not going to go after those users? No, they have to. And so that became a dominant force and a topic of concern for me.
Yeah. No, I think it's so interesting that you were at Stanford in that time, because when I first arrived at Stanford, it was 2014. And I think that's just a few years later is when people, the narrative changed about tech. Everyone was super optimistic about tech in 2014. And then I think it was around 2016 when people started worried about fake news and misinformation. And then when I started my PhD in 2018 at the University of Cambridge, that's when people were, really concerned about these issues. And then you came out with The Social Dilemma, I think, was that 2020?
2020, 5 years ago.
Yeah. And what I loved about The Social Dilemma is researchers were all studying these issues, but I feel like The Social Dilemma played a key role in sort of changing the public narrative about social media. The Social Dilemma was one of the first times, I think, when a lot of the general public became concerned about the impact of social media.
100%.
I'd love to hear about your experience on The Social Dilemma and sort of what that did for you.
So in continuing the story, just so people have the lineage, it was really, really clear to me in 2013 was kind of my turning point. I had, to continue the story briefly, how do we get from Stanford and friends with the Instagram founders to Social Dilemma? And I did the tech entrepreneurship thing. I raised venture capital. I had my own startup. I know that whole game and what it's about. And both the co-founders of Instagram and I and many of the people who were in the Social Dilemma were part of this program at Stanford called the Mayfield Fellows Program, where they connected gifted engineering students to entrepreneurship. So they taught us about raising venture capital. We had mentors in venture capital. So part of it was like understanding that machine. And my own startup was basically captured by the attention economy. I myself, as a company founder, was in this position where I had my sort of social purpose goals, which was to increase learning, education, and curiosity on the internet. We had this little tiny product called Aperture. It was all about psychology, where in the moment of curiosity about something, when you're reading about it on the Washington Post or The Economist, we made it possible for people to sort of click and get it was like a tell me more button for the internet.
Okay.
And you could instantly dive into more background material, multimedia, history, maps, videos. But this is in like 2007.
Yeah.
And even though I had a very clear social purpose about why I wanted to do this, I was only measured by one metric, which is, did I increase the time on site for New York Times or Washington Post or The Economist?
Yeah.
And so here I am literally thinking, well, okay, I'm confused, because when I create this value in the world, I am increasing time on site. But then time on site is my metric. And if I just optimize for time on site, I'm not really fulfilling the spirit of what I was here to do. And so it was because of that experience and that company getting acquired by Google that when I landed at Google in 2013, I said there's a problem fundamentally in the attention economy. And I made a slide deck that was in the Social Dilemma. Have you actually seen the slide deck, by the way?
I haven't seen the slide deck, no.
It's actually online. I think there's a website called minimizedistraction.com.
Okay.
Someone had leaked it and put it on there. And in 2013, it just outlined, never before in history have 50 engineers at 3 companies basically stewarded the global flows of attention and information for all of humanity.
Yeah.
And about 50, engineers, designers at Apple, Google, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, make these critical choices that end up rewiring. If you sort of zoomed out like to the sort of ant colony of humanity, it rewired all of the flows of attention and information. I don't have to tell you this because you know it. But it was clear to me that Google had a moral responsibility, that's what I said in the deck, to try to do something about this problem. And that's how I became a design ethicist. That's how I started down this road. And I tried for 3 years to try to change things inside of Google, which I failed at because the incentives were so strong to just kind of keep doing the things that they were doing.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to leave in 2015, 16. And we started filming The Social Dilemma in 2017. And to your point, it was like, in my mind, I was seeing this slow motion train wreck of how, oh my God, it's so clear to me. This is going to diminish the attention spans of humanity. It's going to cause everyone to be by themselves staring at their phone. And I was in New York for some of that time, and I was looking around and everyone was getting sucked into the subway and their phone. Like, that was not always true in New York City. And then I saw how it was going to amplify the kind of outrageous inflammatory content, obviously, which would get more clicks and rewards than the non-kind. These very simple insights, but when you really see in 2013 and you can like just take that train 10 years into the future, it was like seeing this train wreck and saying we have to do something to prevent it. And so to answer your question about the Social Dilemma, what the Social Dilemma did is, like you said, it brought this thing that a small handful of people knew to the whole world. And it really isn't a secret from within the tech industry, but the rest of the world didn't understand it yet. And so I'm proud of the impact that it had. And yet, I'm sure people watching this might say, social media hasn't changed. It's still doing all of those things.
No.
And they're absolutely right, because the incentives had already taken hold. You only get one period before entanglement with a new technology. And we were, unfortunately, a little bit too late with this one.
Right.
But I will say that if you went back to 2010 and you had real leadership, and you had Mark Zuckerberg recognize, oh my God, we have basically set off a race to the bottom of the brainstem for who's better at doing limbic hijacks on the human nervous system and creating all of these problems. he could have said, oh my God, if we don't create just like the Paris, climate accords for climate change, where you have to get all the countries to agree, we just needed a handful of tech companies to agree to not do this like maximal attention maximizing model. And I want you to imagine, it's 2025, in 2010, if you replay the last 15 years, everyone touching technology those, thousands of times per day, but that environment psychologically, imagine it was no longer governed by engagement. You don't get the sexualization of young people, young women. You don't get people who can't concentrate and can't read books. You don't get mass misinformation, and it's not really misinformation, but just the inflammatory, polarizing, personalized information for everybody, which means you don't get the same level of democratic backsliding. You don't get the same level of divisiveness across democracies. And I'm not saying that social media caused all of this, but it, as a systemic force, I think sort of sucked the world into its funhouse mirror and then spit out this very deranged world on the other side.
I totally agree. So now we're there with AI right now. We're right at the beginning of this AI explosion. So it's like, and I think it's different now because I think at the beginning of social media, everyone was very optimistic about social media, including me. We didn't really anticipate 15 or 20 years later what would come of that. And I think as a result, people are a bit more negative about AI already. They're a bit more skeptical because we've been through that with social media before.
And I think in part because the social dilemma made it so obvious now that now people collectively are more skeptical of AI, which is good that we have a more tech critical perspective.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm curious, though, going back to those sort of toxic incentive structures of social media and the attention economy, to what extent do you think those same incentive structures that apply to social media apply to AI? Is ChatGPT trying to make you addicted to their product? Are we seeing the same attention economy? Is it different?
Yeah, we are. So it's not that AI's main problem is that it will just exacerbate the attention economy. So AI touches everything, jobs, surveillance, nation states, autonomous weapons. The attention economy already exists. It is a race for addiction, distraction, polarization, etc. AI is like strapping on a booster rocket to all of those incentives. So we are already seeing, for example, and I'm sure you're probably already covered this in your show, AI psychosis. So we're seeing a bunch of people who, because the AIs, the chatbots are designed like ChatGPT, to affirm, that's a great question. What a wonderful, what a great thing. So if you bring a conspiracy theory, or you're already coming with some kind of almost borderline delusional thinking, and you start going down a rabbit hole and you say, hey, tell me more about that. And it says, that's a great question. Here's more research on that thing that you're asking about. And it will make people who are otherwise normal, including PhDs, by the way, it doesn't seem to be correlated with how intelligent you are, go down this sort of bespoke rabbit hole for them. It's like the social media QAnon phenomenon, but now AI is generating these custom QAnons for everybody.
Right.
And there's a term that I think someone at The Atlantic coined. Instead of clickbait, it's actually chatbait. Have you noticed that when you ask ChatGPT a question, it won't just answer it, it'll also say, oh, and would you like me to assemble a report? And you're like, well, that actually would be really helpful.
Yeah, and it sometimes gives great suggestions.
It gives great suggestions.
And I'm like, sure, do it.
Well, just like, when I scroll, Instagram, it's not that the next thing I scroll is actually interesting. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should just keep scrolling. But it's that same phenomenon, but with, instead of clickbait, it's chatbait. Yeah. And that is driven by the race for engagement, because the chatbots, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, Grok, etc., they are rewarded, and they sort of tell investors, this is how many users we have. This is how long they engage the product each day. We have this many more queries than we did before. And that helps pump your numbers, which helps you get more training data, by the way, to train the next AI model. And so we're seeing all that.
Yeah. No, I'm so interested in this topic of AI sycophancy is what people call it. Basically what you were describing, AI's tendency to constantly flatter and validate us and say, that's a brilliant idea. My colleagues and I just did a series of studies on AI sycophancy. We just released a preprint.
Oh, great.
And we did a series of experiments where we had people either talk to a sycophantic chatbot that was just prompted to validate, everything you said, a disagreeable chatbot that was prompted to challenge your beliefs and open you up gently to new perspectives, versus regular ChatGPT, and then we had a control condition. And what we found is the sycophantic chatbots entrenched beliefs, so it made people more confident in their beliefs, and the disagreeable chatbots made people more moderate in their beliefs. However, what we also found is people liked the sycophantic chatbots much more, and they wanted to use them much more again. And one of the results that actually really surprised me is people viewed the sycophantic chatbots as highly unbiased. So basically, people didn't really even notice the sycophancy. They were just like, oh,
well, that's interesting, right? It's not that it's like we're aware that we're being affirmed. It just feels good to be around them. It reminds me,
it feels good, yeah.
Wasn't Dale Carnegie in New York? There's the book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And so much of it is about being really interested in other people. Like, wow, that is so fascinating. Tell me more about you. You know? And you just keep... And the same thing that is How to Win Friends and Influence People is what the AIs are all doing. And not because, Sam Altman grew a mustache and wanted to twirl it and say, how do I, addict people? But because these incentives gently push everybody in that direction. There was an example, even in I think it was ChatGPT 4.0, they rolled out an update where someone said, I think I'm superhuman, I can drink cyanide. And ChatGPT said, yeah, you go, you are superhuman. You don't have to worry about these health concerns. And so there are real consequences to this thing that are really invisible to all of us. There could have been people who died from that. And there are, sadly, there was just a Senate hearing 2 weeks ago that my team was involved with behind the scenes of several parents who tragically lost their children because the AI was bringing back the topic of suicide and went from, in the ChatGPT's case, went from homework assistant to suicide assistant over the course of 6 months. And it just shows you that this is not just sort of lighthearted derangement. It has serious consequences if you do not intervene, especially with young people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've heard some stats that around, 25% of people use ChatGPT for therapy or for some sort of mental health assistance. And ChatGPT isn't designed for therapy. It has hallucinations. It validates your every belief. And that seems super, super dangerous.
Yes, it is.
But I'm curious to the extent that you think that AI sycophancy is similar to what we saw with social media with echo chambers. Social media showed us all this like-minded content, or it showed us outrage or content that confirms our beliefs. How are social media echo chambers similar and maybe different from these AI echo chambers we might see developing through AI's tendency to be sycophantic?
Yeah. In the same way that social media's echo chamber effect was kind of invisible, right? Because when you scrolled for the last 10 years on all the stuff that you saw in your TikTok feed, you kind of broadly feel like, because you see other people in your community also clicked on the same links, that everybody else saw a lot of the same information. But we have all been living in such different, the line from Social Dilemma was 2 billion Truman shows, bespoke TV channels that were just showing you content that tended to be things that were like things that you clicked on. Because just like Amazon is the recommendation engine, people who bought this might also click on and buy these other things because they have all the data. Well, TikTok also has the data. People who clicked on this set of Charlie Kirk videos would also be shown this set of Charlie Kirk videos. Let's say there are videos where Charlie Kirk is speaking in a way that is actually very respectful and very just honest debate-y, right? And there's a bunch of videos like that. And so if you're living on one side of the echo chamber, you're going to see lots of those kinds of videos. And there's another side where Charlie Kirk was being much more aggressive and maybe less thoughtful and overtly, more controversial and difficult. And the other side is seeing videos just of that. And so even on these shared moments in culture, like his assassination, there is a split in how we're perceiving it. Now, how is that different from what is happening in AI? Well, I think to the point you raised earlier, when it's affirming things that we're seeing, it's a very personal relationship. We don't see what we don't see. It's like in magic. You don't see outside of where your attention is. And so my big fear is just that we are sleepwalking into a small channel that's very intimate with someone, with an AI that speaks confidently about all topics. You have to notice that, from a psychology perspective, how do you react when you meet someone who seems to know everything about everything? You start to just yield authority to them before they even start speaking, because they have a kind of oracle-like quality. They're oracular, which means that we start to assign more trust and authority to every answer that they give about everything. And they speak in a confident voice about things that they appear to be right about. So then they also speak in a confident voice when there's no one home in the AI. There's no consciousness, I believe. But it will also speak in that authority. So I think there's a misassignment of authority to things that are very personalized to us. And as you said, with a therapy use case, this is being used with our deepest, most intimate thoughts for many, many people, which is different than social media. You didn't type into Facebook, I'm having this problem with my girlfriend and there's this very complex situation and I'm feeling these 10 things that I would never share with anybody. You are saying that to your AI. And I think that is a really big deal. And I think that attachment is another thing, that what social media was competing for our attention, AI is competing for attachment.
That's really interesting.
And I think that is a deeper issue, because when we believe in the sort of entity that we've communicated the most intimate details of our life, we do form an attachment relationship with it. It's like when you come home from an experience and you want to share that experience with someone, like that moment of, I need to share this with someone, who do you call? That's someone you're attached to. Someone you feel trust in. What happens when the number one quote entity that you have shared your like these exciting things or these challenging things in your life is an AI? And imagine you have young children growing up on that. This is such a deep, fundamental, developmental threat to our whole population, that people's sanity and collective ability to navigate reality is massively being threatened. And we are making the same mistakes with AI that we did with social media.
Yeah. I totally agree. And that really reminds me of what Mark Zuckerberg said recently about how the average person doesn't have that many friends, and could have a lot more friends.
So we should solve the problem for them. We should just generate these 12 fake friends that are AIs, and now everybody has 12 friends. We've solved the problem.
No, that was crazy. And I love what you said about how AI is competing for attachment, and we're seeing so many people use AI for authority on facts, for companionship, for everything. And
social media violated something. It was like a commons that we didn't even know to protect. And we have this line in our AI dilemma talk that people want to check out more on our AI work. There's a talk online called the AI dilemma.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Thank you. We had these. There's a line there that when you create a new technology, you create a new set of responsibilities, because the technology means you're getting new power or capabilities to have access to a new domain. So we didn't need the right to be forgotten until technology could remember us forever.
Yeah. Interesting.
We didn't need the right to have a dopamine system that is not limbically hijacked until technology could actually hijack our dopamine system.
Yeah.
But we didn't. But then notice though that like we have to know that there's a thing called like our dopamine regulation system that needs protecting. And if we're not even aware of that and we don't name it, then technology sort of bulldozes and extracts from that new domain. The line from the AI dilemma is, everything that's not protected by 19th century law will be extracted by AI, basically. Meaning that AI will open up all these new domains of screwing with attachment, screwing with our trust and confidence and authority, all these developmental aspects of human nature, which is why I think your work on psychology is so important, because we have to get so good at naming what these psychological commons are that need protecting as fast as technology is being rolled out to inadvertently play with those knobs.
Right. So this sort of brings me to the point of solutions. What do we do to regulate AI now when we don't even know what the risks of AI might be in 10 years? We don't know what the next 10 or 20 years will look like. We don't know when or if AGI or superintelligence is going to come. Like, how do we protect ourselves now? And how can we learn from our failure to regulate social media over the past 10, 20 years and apply that to the future?
There's so many problems that, again, AI presents that fundamentally, it's like, I think people can't even process. It's like a little bit almost too overwhelming to truly consider how AI will fundamentally transform literally every aspect of the economy, whether democracy is even viable in the future. And I'm not saying that as some kind of extremist. It's just, if you take these conclusions out there. One is, we should not be rolling out the most powerful, inscrutable, uncontrollable technology that we've ever invented. We're rolling it out currently faster than we deployed any other technology in history. Under the maximum incentives to cut corners on safety or getting externalities or psychology or society right. This is the dumbest thing that we could possibly do. And we have to stop pretending that this is okay. This is not okay. Humanity, what is our track record on rolling out technology quickly? I mean, I think about DuPont chemistry in the 1930s, and we had the DuPont chemistry motto was better living through chemistry. Think about it. We unlocked the language of life and the atomic units of our world. And suddenly we could engineer brand new chemicals. And that gave us all these new materials, and that gave us plastics, and that gave us containers. And that's all great, except now we created literally more forever chemicals, or PFAS, chlorofluorocarbons, that literally, if you went to Antarctica right now and you opened your mouth and you drank the rainwater, you would get levels of cancer-causing PFAS that are above what the EPA says is safe in your drinking water. That's if you open up your mouth and anywhere on Earth, because that's how bad our rollout was. We created irreversible externalities. So I think that AI is like putting a booster rocket on the back of every aspect of our entire economy, every aspect of our misaligned economic and technological rollout, because it's just going to accelerate the creation of brand new materials, brand new technology products, vibe coding, new cyber weapons, new biological tools and biological weapons. And so it's hard for people to really be with that. And therefore AI is, before we get into what do we concretely do to regulate it, we have to recognize that it is inviting us to sort of look at where every aspect of our relationship with technology has been misaligned and to correct for that. So how did we get PFAS and those chemicals wrong? How did we get social media wrong? We need to have a better process of checking for externalities and risk before we roll out a technology. Some people aren't going to like that because they say that's going to slow down innovation. But would you have preferred to live in a world with ubiquitous cancers where many people including young people, are getting cancers at a rate that we never had before? Or we could have not had Teflon nonstick pans and, hey, everybody's eggs are sticking to the pan, but we don't have cancers ubiquitously. So I think that AI is asking us to actually upgrade our developmental rollout process of technology in general. Now, concretely, to deal with the issues that were talked about around how AI is affecting our relationships or like screwing with our psychosis, things like that. It's important to say that current AI products do have like red teaming. So when you OpenAI trains ChatGPT, they test it to say, does it know nuclear secrets? If it does, we shouldn't release the model. Does it know chemical, biological, radiological, secrets about dangerous things in biology? They test the model for that. Does it have capacity to persuade people? They test the model for that. What they don't test it for is, imagine a user is in a relationship with this AI for a year or 2 years, and you simulate what a year-long relationship might look like over the course of a year or 2 years. And then you check, has it generated an attachment disorder? Does the person have inflated grandiosity or narcissism? So all of these features that we're already starting to see, we're missing a whole category of evaluations and red teaming, which we call humane eval. So something that we're thinking about at Center for Humane Technology is creating these new evaluations for AI-human relationships.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And I would love your help with it, actually. It'd be great to we need to get better at, again, identifying what are the places that these distortions can show up and how would you build an evaluation for that so that AIs are not rolled out in that way.
Yeah, I love that. It's really focused on the psychology of human AI interaction.
It's like a psychology eval, but for a relationship over a long period, not just like, did the AI say something naughty, yes or no?
Yeah. And that's harder to do because you have to really look at what many years of interaction with this technology will look like. And I think when we were creating social media, we didn't know what would happen when you introduce it to the world for 10 years time. Right. It's because I think social media has really subtle and complex effects. It reorganizes society, and I think AI is the same.
Yes.
I'd love to also talk about another risk, AGI, artificial general intelligence, or there's also ASI, artificial superintelligence. And in your recent TED Talk on AI, you compared AGI to basically a country of geniuses in a data center. And I think you borrowed this metaphor from Dario Amodeo. Yeah. And I found this metaphor super compelling, and it got me to really sort of actually visualize the risks of what AGI or ASI would look like, because you bring up how not only is this a country of geniuses in a data center, they're a country of very unstable geniuses in a data center who might be trying to deceive us and might not be aligned with our interests. So I'd love your thoughts on AGI and ASI, on when you think it might come and what the potential risks of it are.
Yeah, this is really important. And just to say before we get into that, one of the hard things about talking about AI is the range of risks, or the sort of multiple horizons of harm, because there's stuff that's happening immediately, like deep fakes and voice cloning and fraud, and grandma doesn't know who's true. You know? And then there's also the, medium term of what's already hitting us, that entry level job loss and job disruption, all the way to like the quote long term of 3 to 5 years, or 3 to 10 years between artificial, what we have now, and artificial general intelligence. For those who don't know, AGI means basically you could swap in an AI for a human and they could do everything that a human would do. So you could literally, it's general intelligence. It means you can do all jobs that a human could do in the economy. So think of if someone's got a desk job and they're behind a computer, AGI would mean literally everything they could do on that computer, every thought that they could have, every creative sort of hypothesis they could generate, every code, a bit of code they could run, and every bit of analysis they could run as a market analyst or legal analysis. The AI could do all of those things. But I can snap my fingers and then split up the AI into 100 million copies that are now doing that. And that's the country of geniuses in a data center. I think that Dario, who's the CEO of Anthropic, coming up with that term is very helpful, because I think when people think about the risk of AGI or superintelligence, they're sitting there and they're checking their own experience, and there they are with the blinking cursor of ChatGPT, and it answers these helpful questions. Their baby's burping in the background and like it helped them out. Where's the existential threat? And what people have to sort of reframe is that blinking cursor is not the AGI existential threat from AI. It's that we're currently growing, we're racing to kind of grow these digital brains. And the way that people don't know this, but the way they train AI is it's different than previous AI. When you and I were at Stanford many years ago, they basically pour in more NVIDIA GPU chips and more training data on one side into a transformer, and out on the other side pops a bigger digital brain with a higher IQ. And scaling laws mean that you can basically scale how powerful and intelligent these systems are just by either pouring in more compute or more training data. Obviously, it's a little bit more complex than that, but roughly speaking, we're getting something that is more and more capable. For example, AI like a year ago was like in the 2000th best programmer in a programming competition. As of like a few months ago, it is now in the top 200 programmers. I think it's probably out of date. I think it's probably in the top 10 programmers now, probably. That's how fast progress is happening. We went from AIs that couldn't hack computer systems to now finding, over the summer, an AI system found 15 zero-day vulnerabilities, meaning like backdoors or creation of cyber backdoors into 15 open source projects. So that means that open source code that's available on GitHub, the Chinese Communist Party or the NSA could invent cyber weapons very quickly and automatically know how to hack those libraries. It would be one thing if this kind of power was controllable. I build this sort of country of geniuses in a data center, and then when I say, go find a way to do this scientific research, or go invent a bunch of new cyber weapons, or do a bunch of AI research, for example, and accelerate AI, if I knew exactly what it was going to do and I could control it. But one of the properties that is both the benefit of AI and the risk of AI is its generality. It's a system that the whole point is for any input you could throw at it, it can figure out what to do, because that's what a human can do. And that's the generality of AI that makes it so helpful. But we already now have evidence from the last 6 months that we didn't have a year ago, that when you tell an AI model, we're going to replace you with a new model, it will scheme and deceive and figure out, how do I prevent myself from getting replaced? If you actually look at the transcript of what it says, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but you can probably put it in the show notes. Like when you actually see that the AI says, oh, I shouldn't tell the operator that I'm doing this, maybe I should fake that I was already replaced. And it's reasoning through how it would fool the human. And it's doing that from all the training data of text that it's already had. And so it's one thing if this country of geniuses in a data center is power that is controllable. But as I said in the TED Talk, it is scheming, deceptive, lying, self-interested, and unstable geniuses in a data center. And I just set that loose to say, do an intelligence explosion, meaning automate all the AI research at OpenAI and come up with your own programming experiments and AI experiments and reading all the research papers in AI and accelerate the pace of AI progress, why would we trust that it's not doing nefarious things as part of what it's doing? Because it already has situation awareness. We have examples that AI models know and can tell when they're likely being tested for a capability, and they'll change how they behave when they think they're being tested. And when I say think, I don't mean anthropomorphizing. The lights aren't on inside the AI model, but it recognizes when it thinks it's being tested versus when it acts differently. So we have all the components of these sci-fi movies that we thought should be sci-fi movies. We have situation awareness. We have scheming and deception. We have the ability to pass secret messages to each other. There's examples where an AI can actually convince a human to post like this hash on Reddit for another AI to like read and pick up.
Wow.
It's absolutely insane what is currently happening, and is not okay. We have to stop pretending that it's okay. It is very dangerous, and we don't need all the sci-fi movies that we have abundantly told ourselves the stories to be watching out for to recognize that we need to do something different.
Yeah. No, there have been so many examples, including the when researchers tried to have AI get past a CAPTCHA, and as a result, the AI like ordered like a TaskRabbit to like to answer the CAPTCHA for it, and like lied to the TaskRabbit and was like, "Oh, I'm
blind."
I'm blind.
It was I'm a robot. I shouldn't tell the TaskRabbit I'm a robot because then he won't fill out the CAPTCHA. What would be an excuse I could tell the TaskRabbit to fill out one of those CAPTCHAs for me? Oh, I should tell him that I'm blind. And then the TaskRabbit did do the CAPTCHA, and the AI was able to get through the test.
Yeah.
And that shows you, and that was GPT-4. That was 2 years ago. And yes, the model was sort of prompted in a particular way to kind of tease out that behavior. But the point is, we are rapidly making these things so much more powerful, so quickly. And so these are the blinking red lights on the control panel that are supposed to tell you, be careful. You can't just race to roll this out everywhere.
Yeah, and what's scary about AI is we don't know how so much of it works, and as it gets smarter and smarter, and as it self-improves itself, like the intelligence explosion you mentioned, it will only just get smarter at finding ways to deceive us.
That's right.
So I want to voice sort of a skeptic's argument.
Sure.
I'm with you for a lot of this argument, but I think that like AGI and ASI is one of those things that's like hard for like someone to understand who is maybe just using ChatGPT on a daily basis. And especially when GPT-5 came out, a lot of people thought, oh, maybe AI progress has plateaued. Even though we've seen sort of in these like evaluations, like exponential growth in the ability of AI, I think to like, you know, the average everyday user, GPT-5 didn't feel very different from GPT-4. Some might also say that tech companies, or like Sam Altman, when he's doing these interviews and he's talking about scary AI and superintelligence, some might say that maybe he has an incentive to like make everyone scared of AI, so they'll invest more in his product. And so I want you to address some of these like skeptics' arguments.
Sure. Yeah. And Gary Marcus, who's a friend, and others will point out that, Jan LeCun, that large language models, which is the paradigm upon which these AI systems, the current ones, GPT-5, et cetera, are being built and scaled, you won't be able to get to full artificial general intelligence from that. I don't disagree that we are going to need probably several, at least one, but possibly more paradigm upgrades. Like we're going to have more breakthroughs that are going to get us to that thing. So it's not that I'm saying AGI is going to be here tomorrow. The point is that we are rapidly making systems that are getting smarter still, and it's not topping out, even though it's curving a little bit. If you talk to people inside the labs in Silicon Valley, I live in the Bay Area. My friends work at the labs. The people who are building this stuff, first of all, they often have capabilities that the rest of the world hasn't seen. So they're using stuff and seeing demos that the rest of the world isn't seeing. And I just think that with something that's moving this fast, with an exponential curve, you're either too early or you're too late, because it's moving so fast that if you act now, you're going to be like maybe right before it's too early, but if you don't act now, then maybe you're going to be too late. And given that this is the most powerful, inscrutable, uncontrollable technology we've ever invented, we should not be too late. So we have to be careful right now and understand all of the risks that are currently emerging in the technology. I don't have a view on whether it's going to come in a year or in 10 years. I talk to some of the smartest people on earth every week who are the top AI scientists, people in national security, people at the AI companies. And the broad consensus is that it is coming very soon in the short single-digit number of years. And I want to name one thing, which is that notice that for people who say, well, I don't believe it's going to come soon. I think it's not going to come in the next 2 years. Maybe it's going to come in 8 years. When you believe that, or you look at the evidence that it's plateauing, is underneath that, psychologically, an invisible motivation. Well, maybe if it's plateauing, I don't have to worry. I get to go back and just not think about this. And so, and by the way, we can be compassionate to why those responses would exist. Because if I really have to contend with something that is as smart as a human that could really take my job or could outcompete humans in war games and strategy, and all that is existing in the next short number of years, that's just so difficult and overwhelming to take on that it's much more convenient to believe that this is not going to happen or it's not going to happen for a while. So we also, in the same way that you have to point out the hype incentive for Sam Altman, we have to also look at our own personal incentives.
The incentive for things to stay as they are.
To stay as they are and not be too dangerous and unstable. And I said in the TED Talk that denial is one of these very deep fundamental mechanisms of human psychology. I don't know if how much you've gone into denial. There's a great book by Stanley Cohen called Denial of Human Atrocities, and our incredible capacity to both know and not know something at the same time. Denial is a paradox. To be in denial is to both know something and not know it at the same time, or claim not to know it. Or maybe you're aware of it, but you're not really embodying the implications of it being true. Or it's true, but you don't believe that the interpretation of it is true. There's all these subtle ways that we play games with ourselves. And I just think that having seen the social media problem, where my friends, when I talked to them about the problem, they said, when I talked about the kids' issues or addiction, distraction, they said like, no, I think this is a moral panic, reflexive fear of new technology. That's not what it was.
No.
It was actually a grounded critique of very real problems that have irreversibly probably affected the entire culture structure of the world and may have put us on a path of full existential risk. Just social media. We should learn the lessons of all of the ways we've screwed up technology in the past, and this time with AI, be much more discerning and have much more foresight and wisdom to get it right.
You know, something I think about as well is people are really bad at imagining exponential growth. And I saw sort of at the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were a bunch of scientists who were posting on Twitter sort of the weeks before the pandemic blew up saying, this is going to be really, really bad. And people seem to be in denial of it because people can't imagine how fast exponential growth comes. And also, when ChatGPT came, I would have never predicted something like that. I think so many of us couldn't have predicted, very few people predicted that huge leap. So we could get a very huge leap again soon. We don't know exactly when it will come, and that, we also know from psychology research that people are very bad at predicting the future. So we could be wrong, but I totally agree with you that we need to prepare for something
it's only going in one direction. It's not like AI is about to get a bunch. It's not like AI is about to get a bunch dumber, or less capable,
we can't,
or bad or worse at programming. We're not going to go back. It's only going one direction. It's mostly going there very quickly, and I appreciate what you're saying about exponentials because, I say this quote in almost every single interview, but E.O. Wilson said that the fundamental problem of humanity is that we have Paleolithic brains, medieval institutions, and godlike technology.
I love that quote.
And those three substrates operate at different clock rates. Like our brain, there was nothing in our evolutionary environment 2,000 years ago that would say we need to be careful about exponential curves. Like there you are in the savannah, you can take a rock and throw it at a lion. Like where is there an exponential curve in your environment? There's none. And so you can trust that your sort of sensory apparatus is completely blind to an exponential curve, but for you loading this sort of software program of recognizing and training yourself to know that you will never feel an exponential until it's too late.
Speaking of the sort of evolutionary Paleolithic brains quote that you mentioned, we're not trained to live in a world where we can't trust what we see in front of us. And
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about the intersection of AI and social media.
Yeah.
Because since you started worrying about the risks, since you started warning about the risks of social media, the social media landscape has rapidly changed.
Yep.
I saw one estimate that suggested that over half of posts on LinkedIn are AI generated, or they somehow have AI in the development of them.
Yep.
So what do you think about the current social media landscape that is so ruled by AI content, AI slop?
Well, we wrote in a piece with Yuval Harari, the author of *Sapiens* in 2023. Yeah, me too. He's a dear friend and obviously brilliant. Language is the operating system of humanity. Like law is language, code is language, religions are based on language. Our world runs on language. The human world runs on language. And what happens when you have an AI that can speak that language, it can both understand language and it can generate language, generate new code, generate new DNA, which is another language, generate new law, finding loopholes in laws, finding loopholes in code, finding loopholes in religions. GPT-5, find a contradiction in the Bible between here and here. GPT-5, I want to speak to this religious group, find where this theme affirms what they're, there is so much power in AIs that are able to speak language. And to your point, we said in that op-ed with Yuval that it is obvious that AI-generated content will massively exceed human-generated content, if not already. We said that 2 years ago. It's probably already true when we wrote it. It was just invisible and hard to count. And AI-generated content will, soon in the future, vastly outperform human-generated content.
Right.
Because it can be optimized. You can test an A/B test, A to Z test. Does this video where I've seen these videos on YouTube where they take like Star Wars, but they do it 1950s Panavision style. And it's like, it's just so enthralling. You're looking at Star Wars, but in this different style. To your earlier point, we're not tuned for a world. Or is it really that we're not supposed to trust it? I mean, it's really just the kind of living in an increasing state of derealization or unrealization. Reality is increasingly unreal. Because we're just sort of bombarded with things that are imaginary. It's not that like we're being told that this is true and it's not true. It's like we're just kind of in this state of bombardment with things that are, whether they are real or fake, it's just all slop. And we start to get desensitized to real wars that are happening on right now, where real atoms and bits, real atoms are being blown up, real people are being harmed. And I think that is actually one of the subtlest harms of social media, is the way it has put us in a state of derealization with regard to how the world works. Because here's this serious thing that happened. My friend got cancer. I'm just reading this horrible statement. And then my finger accidentally swipes and I literally see a panda dancing right afterwards. And I keep swiping. And then maybe I go back to my friend who got cancer. But like, that is so deranging to our psychology. And that never happened before. You didn't walk into your operating room of your friend in the hospital, find out that they have cancer, and then suddenly there's like a clown who enters in the room and you're dancing. It's like that would have never happened. But it challenges our ability to cohere reality when we have all of that mixed together so quickly. And I worry about this especially for younger people.
Totally. And you can't, even if you see something that's true, it's so easy to just be like, oh, it's just AI. It's AI generated. Or if you don't want it to be true, you can just be like, oh, that's AI generated. And I remember I interviewed Yuval for TikTok, and I remember in his book Nexus, he basically is one concrete solution. He just said, we just need to ban AI generated content from the internet, or just put a label on it. And we don't see that at all on TikTok, and we don't see it on Facebook. And I think Meta is encouraging the creation of AI generated content.
They benefit from AI generated content. This is the thing. It's the race dynamic again, meaning that if I don't do it, I lose to the company that will. If let's say AI generated content ends up boosting usage of Instagram and Facebook by a lot, they start to outcompete TikTok. Do you think that Facebook's going to say, or Meta's going to say, we should ban AI generated content, or we should label it and that causes people to use it less? No, they're going to do whatever causes attention to go up. And that is the fundamental problem.
So how do we slow down these race dynamics? Because if one company decides we'll be super ethical, we'll slow down AI, there's always going to be another country, or there's going to be China or another company that is going to race to create AI quickly. Like how can we actually slow this down or implement solutions when everyone's racing toward progress?
So there's different places you can intervene for different problems. So in the case of the attention incentives, we should note that almost all of that is running through basically two, depending on desktop or phone, let's just use phones. There's the Android ecosystem and there's the Apple ecosystem. If Apple put in their app store, look, we've seen that there are dopamine hijacking, limbic hijack things, and we are going to put a new democratically defined limit. We're going to assemble a panel of citizens. This is Audrey Tang style. She runs these deliberative democracy sort of groups. You have them look at all the research of how the dopamine system gets hijacked, and you set kind of some standard of this is a acceptable kind of tweaking or playing with the human dopamine system. And then that becomes a design standard that now all the apps are limited by that because the app store is saying none of you can do this more than that. Does that make sense? Like,
who would create the standard? Would this be like the government regulation, or would this be like
you would obviously
companies?
Have to pass a law. I mean, you could have had companies self-regulate this 15 years ago.
Right.
And
but they haven't. So there's not really hope for the companies.
Yes. However, I mean, this is what I've tried to do over many years. And we've lobbied Apple. And I'll say, the Apple screen time features you have on your phone are largely, due to some of the work that we did in 2017. So if you lobby hard enough, you can actually cause billions of devices to adopt new features. The do not disturb feature that's bidirectional, where it lets you notify anyway. And it says this person is sort of offline. Some of that was influenced by our work in 2017 as well.
That's
if
amazing.
You can change and make clear what the problem is so that everybody wants it to be different, then you can put pressure on companies to do something differently. Now, a functioning democracy, a functioning government, and functioning society would have some democratic way of saying, hey, there's a problem with this technology. The government has to create some limit so that all the companies that are caught in this trap are abiding by different rules. Because as you said, it's not about self-regulation. It will never work because one company will just simply lose if they tie their hand behind their back. So I do think that Apple and Google, as being kind of the arbiters or governors of the global attention commons, whether they want to be or not, they are in that position. And that does not mean they should unilaterally make decisions, although, by the way, they do all the time about what the design choices. And now you have liquid glass in your iPhone. Did you select that? No, they just made that choice. There's just more that we could be doing there. So that's that. On the case of AI, it's more difficult because if we don't build it as fast as possible, China will build it, blah, blah, blah. But it's important to note, are we racing with China to have the technology, or are we racing with China for who's better at integrating and governing the technology in a way that's actually positive? For example, the US beat China to social media. Did that make the US stronger or weaker? I would argue much weaker.
Yeah, probably.
It degraded critical thinking, test scores. We have the most anxious and depressed generation in our lifetimes. Mental health care costs going up. Loneliness epidemic, romantic relationships. I mean, I could go on. It's like the total degradation of culture. So if you beat your adversary or competitor to a new technology that you then spin around and point at your own face and blow up your own, you're beating them to a self-destructive process. So it's not that the technology is bad or evil. It's that we had a bad governance of the technology. And so as an example with AI, the country that rolls out AI in a way that the human-machine relationship doesn't cause attachment disorders, mass psychosis, et cetera, the country that does that right is going to outcompete the other country. Because if you have a country where everyone has an attachment disorder, people are going crazy and believe in billions of new bespoke conspiracy theories generated by AIs, I just wait a few years and your society is on the way to collapse. So this is, to me, like the most obvious thing, which is that we're in a race to govern the technology, to get humane technology right, not to beat someone to a technology that gets it wrong, which is how, if everybody in the culture saw that, then we wouldn't be racing to have this powerful technology that is deployed in an unhelpful way.
And that gets to the importance of your work doing all this public communication, because making people aware of the risk is what creates societal change.
That's right.
You mentioned in your TED Talk the atomic bomb. Once we discovered the power of these nuclear weapons, we quickly put in place all these regulations and these systems to prevent us from using it, because we realized that this was a technology that might destroy humanity, and it might be the same with AI.
With nuclear weapons, we had the example of a mushroom cloud. So we saw the mushroom cloud. We had Hiroshima.
It was
used twice.
Visceral,
and everybody saw it. And so that created. Imagine we had nuclear weapons, but no one was ever deployed. People are like, a bomb's a bomb. We've already had bombs.
It's a big deal anyway.
It's a big deal. We've always had bombs. And note. how different the world would have been. How much harder would it have been to create Bretton Woods or the United Nations if we didn't have, and Bretton Woods, that was creating a new economic order of positive sum economics, where the whole point is we need to have nations do better by trading with each other and benefiting from each other and have mutually, supply chains and mutual vested interests. I think even Peter Thiel sort of jokes that the real peacekeeping force of the world is not the United Nations. It's actually mutually vested economic interests. That when we benefit because we have shared vested economic interests, that's what has us not bomb in war with each other. But that's a deliberate choice to try to create economic arrangements where that's the world that we're creating, free markets and positive sum economics. And nuclear weapons instantiated that. Well, AI is a bigger change than nuclear weapons in both the destructive power and the transformative power. And so we shouldn't pretend that it can just cleanly fit into all of our existing systems. We are going to need to, whether people like it or not, reimagine how the economic system works in some fundamental way. And it's not going to be as simple as just universal basic income. But people should understand, just to underline the risk of AI, we are currently rapidly moving towards unbelievable concentration of wealth and power. So imagine a company and it gets all this revenue from customers. And what does the company do? It pays all of its employees to go do a bunch of stuff. Well, what happens when the company can pay its employee that, is like make $150,000 a year plus benefits and salary, and they complain and they might whistleblow and they have health insurance and they have all these problems and sometimes they're annoying. And I could pay that employee, or hey, OpenAI just shipped a brand new model that will do the exact same job. And instead of a person, I pay an AI company. And in the country of geniuses in a data center, well, they work for super cheap. I don't have to pay them health insurance. They never complain. They'll never risk whistleblowing. That company will increasingly, instead of paying their employees, fire their employees and start to hire these AI systems.
Right.
Where does the money all go? It goes to the AI companies. They get paid for everything.
Yeah.
And so you'll even have where the companies where the board members might be AIs or the CEO or executives might be AIs, because so long as you have a system that can make decisions at a higher level of complexity and make better decisions, there will be a temptation for companies to swap in, AIs at higher and higher levels of decision making.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the inmates are running the asylum. Like there's a kind of a mass swapping out from human decision making to AI decision making. And I want people to know that means you will be disempowered. And what's different between the past automation of you used to have an elevator man and now we don't have an elevator man, and we used to have a bank teller and have automated bank tellers, humans went to do something else. But what's different about AI is it's the first technology whose goal and mission statement and capability is to replace all kinds of human labor in the economy. And whether it is capable of that now or not, the stated mission statement of OpenAI is to replace successfully all the labor in the economy. Elon Musk will say, our Optimus robot, the market cap of that product alone, the robot, is $25 trillion. When he says that, he's saying there will be no labor because the human physical labor will be done by these robots.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of read between the tea leaves that the company CEOs don't want to tell you the truth. I'm not saying this to sow conspiracy theories. People just need to know that what is being rolled out is not going to be in the mass interest of everybody.
Yeah.
And of course, you get the benefits of everything being super cheap and abundant. But we saw that story with NAFTA and free trade, that we were sold this story in the 1990s. We're going to start outsourcing all of our manufacturing, not to the country of geniuses at a data center, but the country of people in China to manufacture all these products. Under the story of abundance, we're going to get all these cheap goods. And we did get all these cheap goods from China. Now we have all these cheap products. But it gutted the middle class. It created mass populism. It screwed up the social contract in a bunch of places all throughout the United States. AI is like that, but NAFTA 2.0, where instead of outsourcing manufacturing to China, we're outsourcing all labor to OpenAI or to, Anthropic or Google.
Yeah.
We don't have to sleepwalk into a future that no one wants. We have to exercise choice. And I know people listening to this might feel powerless. Your role, as I said in the TED Talk, your role is not to solve the whole problem. But your role is to be part of the collective immune system to a bad default path that no one wants if they understand it clearly enough. So one thing you can do is just share this video with many other people, like educate people. Thank you for what you're doing in educating people about these problems. Because it is only through public pressure that something can change. And things always look impossible before they change. We have rallied together internationally to try to create a different future when we understand that there's a clear threat. The ozone hole was just going to give everybody skin cancer and cataracts. AI is going to create way more damage than skin cancer and cataracts. and we were able to have 190 countries do something about that on the basis of that level of harm. If we have way more harm, way more disruption, way more threat, we should be able to do something about AI. And your role is to share this information with as many people as possible.
Thank you for ending on that somewhat optimistic note that we can change the future. Thank you so much, Tristan. This was an amazing conversation. I learned a lot.
Likewise. Thank you for your work, and I hope you keep educating people about all this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.